Dear students, I have come here to teach you the second semester's paper on ethics, second semester's paper on ethics. Let me introduce myself. I am Prof Susmita Pani, Executive Member of the Odisha State Higher Education Council presently, but I am essentially a teacher of history. I retired from Utkal University as the Director of Distance and Continuing Education, and all along I have been a teacher of history. So, take me as a teacher of history. Now, let me come to introducing you the subject. You know, the subject is 2.1 is Indian Constitution, salient features or salient values of the preamble, sovereignty, socialism, secularism, democracy, republic, justice, liberty, equality and fraternity. So, this is the title of the chapter 1, that it is about Indian Constitution, or to be more specific, the values on which, the ethical values on which the Indian Constitution is designed, is practiced and has been legally documented. So, essentially I am going to introduce to you the first chapter in this class. Possibly it will take 4 or 5 classes to cover the first chapter of this this semester, that is the second semester of 3 years degree course, and it is devoted to Indian Constitution and constitutional values which are very important. अच्छा पिला माने आमे प्रथमे आलोचना करिबा जे एई जो विषय वस्तुटाकू किपरि सजा जाइछि, किपरि संरचना करा जाइछि. We will discuss how the chapter has been structured for the entire paper. We are talking of the second semester and the paper on ethics, and I am talking of the first chapter. The first chapter is devoted to the Indian Constitution, salient values of the preamble, because the preamble is like an introduction in a book, and it contains the entire thing which is there in the Constitution. So, what happens is that we are talking of how it has been organized. The first chapter is devoted to salient values of the Indian Constitution as reflected in the preamble. So, like any other chapter which you have seen in the first semester on gender issues, on feminist issues and all that, you will find that this unit is also organized in the same manner as in the first semester. And the structure is like this. The first is the objectives, why we should read this, why we should know this, and then we say we introduce the subject to you, the importance of the subject. Then it is divided into many sub-chapters like making of the Indian Constitution and its objectives. Then the next is devoted to the preamble, values and salient features. We will read out the entire preamble and then it will be subdivided. The values that we are dealing with is sovereignty, socialism, secularism, democracy, republic, justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, dignity, unity and integrity of the nation. Now, let me tell you in simple Odia, जे जो values गुड़िको भारतीय संविधान रे अच्छी रिफ्लेक्टेड होइछि ता प्रिएम्बल रे मोटामोटी लिखा होइछि. प्रिएम्बल टा गोटे बहिर उपक्रम भलिया, गोटे इंट्रोडक्शन भलिया, सेथिरे सारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन रे थिबा जो वैल्यूज गुड़िक अच्छी से वैल्यूज गुड़िक आलोचना होइछि. तेणु प्रथमे ऑब्जेक्टिव कथा कुआउछि, तापर से विषय वस्तु को तुमको सहित परिचय कराउछि, परिचित कराउछि, तेणु ताको इंट्रोडक्शन बोली कुआउछि. भारतीय संविधान किपरि तैयारी हैला एवं तार उद्देश्य कौन थिला से विषय पदे दीपद भी आम आलोचना करिबा. तापरे जो वैल्यूज गुड़ाक आमर सिलेबस रे प्रिस्क्राइब होइछि से गुड़ाक विषय विशद भाव आलोचना करिबा. प्रथम होउछि सॉवरेनिटी बा सार्वभौमत्व, याको बुझेबी मु परवर्ती क्लास रे. तापरे सोशलिज्म बा समाजवाद, तापरे सेक्युलरिज्म बा धर्मनिरपेक्षता, तापरे गणतंत्र, रिपब्लिक, हाँ रिपब्लिक मध्य ताकू बुझिबा भल भाव रे, जस्टिस न्याय किपरि, लिबर्टी कहले फ्रीडम कथा कहउची लिबर्टी कथा कहउची स्वाधीनता विभिन्न विषय को लेकिन स्वाधीनता कहले कौन आम बुझुचे ताकू बुझवा लिबर्टी इक्वालिटी समानता कथा पढ़िबा फ्रैटर्निटी माने भाईचारा कथा पढ़िबा डिग्निटी सम्मान आत्मसम्मान कथा पढ़िबा एवं सभा शेष रे भारतवर्षर यूनिटी एंड इंटीग्रिटी भारत किपरि एक ही ऐक्य ही रहिबो गोटे राष्ट्र ही रहिबो ता भीतर केमती समन्वय आसीबो से कथा पढ़िबा तापरे वैल्यूज ऑफ द इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन विषय जो गुड़ाक विशद भाव आलोचना होती से विषय आउट थे टिके ताकू सम्यक धारणा दबा एवं शेष रे जहाँ चैप्टर रे अच्छी ताकू फेरे समाप्त करवा तार समरी तैयारी करवा एवं तापर पर पुस्तक अच्छी जो गुड़िक कीवर्ड्स से कीवर्ड्स गुड़ाक आलोचना हम एवं सभा शेष रे तुम पाठटा केमती पढ़ाला केतक प्रश्न माध्यम रे तार आलोचना हम सो the chapter is designed like this. Let me repeat: objective, introduction, making of the Indian constitution, objectives of the constitution, the values, the essential values, that is sovereignty, socialism, secularism, democracy, republic, justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, dignity, unity and integrity of the nation, the values of the Indian constitution. Let us sum up keywords, check your learning and then further suggested readings. So, this is how this is organized like any other chapter in the first semester. This is the process on which we will progress right up to 6th semester, right up to 6th semester. So, that is how I have dealt with first with the organization of the chapter. Now, let us move on to the first part of it, the objective बा ओडिया रे कहले उद्देश्य बा लक्ष्य ए विषय वस्तुर लक्ष्य. What is a constitution? We are talking about values of the constitution. I will not try to explain values or mulyabodha to you. Why? Because in the first semester we have covered this extensively. I am dead sure you have already an idea what is a value and what do we understand by various concepts, various values. Let us not get back into that. If you have some doubt, we will get it cleared at the end again. So, and if you look into the first lecture of Professor Ashok Das on this unit, you would have definitely understood what are the values, what is values. एवं वर्तमान प्रश्न उठुची याकू पढ़िले आमर कौन उद्देश्य साधन हम सेगुड़ा कहला ऑब्जेक्टिव और व्हाट आर द ऑब्जेक्टिव्स ऑफ द लेसन. आफ्टर स्टडिंग दिस लेसन you will be able to explain how the constitution is the basic and fundamental law of the land. What is a constitution? Many people say that Great Britain doesn't have a constitution. That is wrong. Great Britain has a constitution just like India has a constitution. The only difference is that there is not a single book in United States of United Kingdom or England which they call constitution. It is a series of laws passed by the British Parliament and it also consists of traditions and many values which are incorporated into the British Constitution. It is not absolutely unwritten, but the Indian Constitution, like the French Constitution, like the Constitution of United States of America, like the Constitution of present Soviet Russia, like the Constitution of China, like most other, there is a small book kind of thing which is called the Constitution. Now, what is it? Is it a key book which you might read? Is it a dictionary? It is a book, but it is not just a book. It is much more than a book. It enshrines the basic features of governance. How this country is to be governed, that is spelled out in the Constitution. Not criminal proceedings law and all that. Laws are, it is much more than a law. Why it is much more than a law? It also reflects the philosophy behind the Constitution, behind our system of governance, behind all our laws, behind all our institutions of governance like Parliament, like the Supreme Court, like the Council of Ministers, like the role of the Speaker, everything. The entire system of governance is actually reflected in a small book kind of a thing in a written form in India, and that is what a constitution. Constitution is just not a guiding principle about the system of governance. It goes much beyond that. Why it goes much beyond that? Because it speaks of the values on which the Constitution is framed. It speaks of the philosophy on which the system of governance in the country is defined. We will deal that in greater detail. So, basically it is the values of the Constitution that is spelled out in the Constitution, the values of governing system that is spelled out in the Constitution, that is what interests us, and you will be able to understand this. आम कौन बुझा जे संविधान कहले कौन संविधान गोटे पुस्तिका कह जाई पारे कारण गोटे पुस्तिकार से कथा लिखाई किंतु एटा पुस्तिकार बहु ऊपर कथा कहीं एटा बहुत ऊपर कथा बहुत भिन्न कथा गभीर कथा कारण यही पुस्तिकार आमर शासन पद्धति केवल लिखाई नहीं शासन पद्धति पछरे थिबा दर्शन को लिखाई आमर गाइडिंग प्रिंसिपल को ए देश को देशर शासन पद्धति रे कौन जातीयवाद रे कौन सब प्रिंसिपल रही कौन सब नीति रही ए नीति गुड़िक यही दर्शन गुड़िक खूब स्पष्ट भाव में लिखा जाइए तेणु आमर जो सिस्टम ऑफ गवर्नेंस अच्छी शासन करिवार पद्धति अच्छी जो खसड़ा अच्छी जो शासन करिवार जो अनुष्ठान गुड़िक अच्छी जथा भारतवर्ष में सुप्रीम कोर्ट अच्छी पार्लियामेंट अच्छी राज्य सरकार अच्छी राज्यर गवर्नर को रोल कथा अच्छी आम राष्ट्रपति कथा अच्छी इत्यादि इत्यादि सब कथा अच्छी आमर जहाँ सब आईन अच्छी क्रिमिनल प्रोसीडियर कोड तार मूल मंत्र ये अच्छी तेणु गोटे गोटे डॉक्यूमेंट जहाँकि आमर राजनैतिक व्यवस्थार मूल मंत्र से हूँ भारतीय संविधान ये कागज धड़ा कलार लिखाई दी चारिटा क्लज जदिओ गोटे लोक जार गभीर बुझामणा नथिबो से भाविबो ये एक पुस्तिका ये किंतु पुस्तिका ठारू अनेक व्यापक एवं ता आम जीवन को दैनंदिन भाव में प्रभावित करुछि ये हूँ एक संविधान एवं अनेकंकर भूल धारणा जे इंग्लैंड रे इभलिया गोटे बही नथिबा फଳରେ सेठार संविधान नाही सेठार मध्य संविधान अछि कारण ये मूल मंत्र गुड़िक पार्लियामेंट रो पास होइथिबा प्राय 1200 मसीह पास होइथिबा आज पर्यंत विभिन्न रिजोल्यूशन विभिन्न आईन माध्यम रे ता प्रतिफलित होछि भारतीय संविधान से भाया स्वाधीनता पर जो संविधान गठन करा जाइछि सेही संविधान आम शासन पद्धतिर मूल मंत्र एवं आम शासन पद्धतिर जो सब मूल्यबोध अच्छी ए मूल्यबोध गुड़ाक ए खूब सुंदर भाव में आलोचित होइछि तेणु सारा संविधान न पढ़िकी जदि आम केवल तार मुखबंध पढ़ी पारिबा प्रिएम्बल पढ़िबा से प्रिएम्बल रे खूब कम शब्द मध्य आमर दर्शन शास्त्र आम राजनैतिक दर्शन शास्त्र एवं कौन आमको शासन करुच्ची कौ पद्धति आमको शासन करुच्ची ता पछरे थिबा दर्शन खूब सुंदर भाव में व्याख्या करा जाइछि तेणु आमे एक्चुअली we will confine ourselves only to the preamble in this chapter and we will understand that after reading this lesson you will be able to appreciate this या को तुम आलोचना कर परिबो ताको तुम बुझी परिबो ये होचे प्रथम लक्ष्य द्वितीय लक्ष्य होची अंडरस्टैंड द प्रिएम्बल ऑफ द इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एंड आइडेंटिफाई कोर गाइडिंग प्रिंसिपल मो पूर्व जमती कहली एवं जो उपक्रम लिखाई से उपक्रम जो नीति गुड़ी को व्याख्या करा जाइछि तार जो मेंशन कराई से गुड़िक आम भल रूप से जापर वी विल अंडरस्टैंड द प्रिएम्बल ऑफ द इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन व्हाई ओनली प्रिएम्बल बिकॉज प्रिएम्बल in a condensed manner in a very condensed manner has reflected the entire philosophy of our governance system of governance our laws and everything else. The last objective of this chapter is appreciate the core constitutional values expressed in the salient features of the Indian constitution. भारतीय कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन रो भारतीय संविधान रो जो गुड़ाक सालिएंट फीचर अच्छी बा मुख्य अंश रही सारांश रही से जो फीचर गुड़िक अच्छी से फीचर गुड़िक आम बुझीपर वी विल एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट आर दी सालिएंट फीचर्स ऑफ द इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन नाउ दिस इज हाउ वी हैव डिसाइडेड टू स्ट्रक्चर द लेसन एंड दीज आर द ऑब्जेक्टिव्स टू रिपीट आम जो पूरा बहीटा पढ़ीदेवा पूरा चैप्टरटा पढ़ीदेवा से आमे भारतर संविधान पछरे थिबा जो नीति गुड़िक जो मूल्यबोध गुड़िक आमर अच्छी से मूल्यबोध गुड़िक आम भल रूप से बुझीपर मोटामोटी भाव में कहवाक गले ये गोटे कथा जे भारतीय संविधान रे जो सब मूल्यबोध रही ताहा जेपरी प्रिएम्बल रे रिफ्लेक्टेड होईची ताकू आमे समस्ते बुझी परिबा. But it is not only that. We will not only understand the values involved, we will also understand how to apply these values in our daily life. एही सब मूल्यबोध को आम जीवन रे दैनंदिन जीवन रे खाली क्लासरूम रे नुह परीक्षा खाता लिखवा पई नुह किंतु आम दैनंदिन जीवन रे ताकू किपरि व्यवहार करि परिबा ताकू से प्रिंसिपल को केमति आम अप्लाई करि परिबा ताहा मध्ये बुझिबा पई चेष्टा करिबा. This is the objective of the first chapter. Let us proceed now to the next part of the talk, that is introducing ba upakrama. Let us introduce the subject. Let me introduce the subject to all of you. The primary objective of the modern state is the welfare of its people. Welfare state. What is a welfare state? Welfare state is something which comes up mostly from India. Now, Indian constitution was achieved after a long freedom struggle. If you recall the essential history, in 1757 Battle of Plassey is fought and Britain starts ruling over India. Whether it was East India Company or the British Crown, that is a matter of detail, but English started their rule in India in 1757. 100 years was a period of expansion of the British Empire in India. And in 1857 we all know the first war of independence was fought. जहाँ को सिपाही विद्रोह कहा जाए, भारतर स्वाधीनतार प्रथम संग्राम बोली कहा जाए एवं अन्यान्य नोमेनक्लेचर व्यवहार करा जाए, से जाऊ ना कहीं 1757 रे प्रथमे बैटल ऑफ पलासी होची, तापरठू इंग्रेज माने हमको शासन करछथि एवं 1857 रे स्वाधीनता संग्राम अयम्बारंभ हो. 1857 मसीह 90 वर्ष काल धरी स्वाधीनता संग्राम चलुची एवं 1947 रे भारत स्वाधीन हो एवं स्वाधीन हवा परे भारतीय संविधान रो विकास घटुची. So there is a 200 years of foreign rule before Indian independence, and Indian constitution is an outcome of this long foreign rule and the long independence struggle. So what happens is that we have created a state since independence which is called a welfare state. What is a welfare state? Welfare state कहले कौन हम बुझवा? Welfare state is a state I will explain to you the term state, or you can go read the text material. I hope that you have come to the class after reading the text material, and at the end there are keywords which have been explained in detail. State, country, nation, nation state, all these have been explained in the keywords. We will of course again explain it for the benefit of all of you, but I hope that each one of you have understood. State is a legal concept. Nation state is a legal concept partly. And what happens is that there are various kinds of states. There are states which claim themselves to be absolutely socialistic republic, or some people claim that they are communist countries. Some countries claim themselves to be a capitalistic country. So America is considered to be one of the great capitalistic country in the world. Some people say they are a liberal democracy and capitalism is their principle, where the individual is free to grow and all that. But India is essentially a welfare state. कौन welfare state कहले कौन ना कल्याणकारी राज्य देश, कल्याणकारी लोकमानकर कल्याण रे लोकमानकर हित रे जो सरकार चले ताकू आमे कल्याणकारी राज्य बोली कहू. The country whose main motto is welfare state, welfare of the people, welfare of the poorest of the poor, welfare of the deprived, welfare of the excluded, and that is why we are called a welfare state. We have a mixed economy. Partly the state owns many things like the railways in India, post and telegraph, many steel plants, until recently an airways, and partly Many other industries are in private sector. Many banks are in government sector, many banks are in private sector. But whatever it is, the system of governance is committed to welfare of the people. That is why we must understand the primary objective of a modern state is the welfare of the people, welfare of their people. A state should have a government functioning with a set of laws. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ରାଜ୍ୟ କହୁ, when we talk of a nation state, there are four things involved in a nation state. First is that it should have a well defined territory. राज्य कहले अनेक समय आमर गोटे कन्फ्यूजन हो जाए भारत में 27टा 28टा 30टा राज्य अच्छी से राज्य कथा मु कहू नहीं, प्रोविंस कथा कहू नहीं, राज्य सरकार केंद्र सरकार कथा मु कहू नहीं। राज्य कहले इंग्राजी रे जो शब्द को व्यवहार कर स्टेट एसटा कैपिटल हम से स्टेट कथा मु कहूँ। भारत गोटे राज्य जेपरी अमेरिका गोटे राज्य, यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका जेपरी गोटे राज्य, भारत गोटे राज्य। आम देश में प्रोविंस अच्छी स्टेट बोली आम जहाँ कहूँ ओडिशा बंगला बिहार अच्छी सेपरी अमेरिकार सब स्टेट अच्छी तांकर 50टा स्टेट अच्छी इत्यादि इत्यादि कथा। एटी स्टेट कहले जो अर्थ में व्यवहार करुच्ची, जो राज्य अर्थ व्यवहार करुच्ची स्टेट अर्थ व्यवहार करुच्ची, प्रोविंस अर्थ व्यवहार करूने। So a state has four features. Gardiner talks of four features. What are the four features? The first is there must be a territory, well defined territory. What is the well defined territory? In India, there is on the top mountain Himalaya and sea is on the three sides. On one side is Myanmar and the other side Pakistan is there, Afghanistan is there. We have a well defined territory. There is some dispute about the territory sometimes. Many countries have disputes. India has also some dispute with China. Now there is no dispute with Bangladesh. There is no dispute with Myanmar. There is no dispute also with Pakistan, but there is still dispute over some portions of Kashmir. Let us not get into that part today. So more or less, that is why we say more or less well defined territory. So if you have a well defined territory, that is the first feature of a state. Second is people. Just if you gather, people have gathered in a stadium for something, you can't call them a state. You can't call them. Any gathering is not state. Now this gathering, the people living in that well defined territory must identify themselves as a nation state. ओडियार कहले खाली लोक संख्या हो गले सेटा राज्य हम ना, स्टेट हम ना। से लोक मानक भितरे जदि गोटे जातीय भाव थिबो ताको मनरे थिबो जे आमे भारतीय, we are Indians, then only it becomes a state. So there is a psychological coherence which is very important. A state should have a government. Next is that gote ala pratham katha ala territory, the second part is the people, the third part it must have a government. ताको शासन करिवार जदि गोटे पद्धति नथिबो, ताको शासन करिवा पे जदि गोटे संस्था नथिबो, if there is no organization to govern the people, then it cannot be also a state. So there must be a government which is an essential part of a modern state. And the government has three aspects. One is the legislature, that is the parliament in India or the state assemblies in India, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. In the states, in some states there is also similarly two houses. In many states there are only one house, like Odisha has only one house. But there are also states which have two houses. But whatever it is, there is that is the first part, legislature. Then executive. Executive consists of the prime minister, his cabinet of cabinet ministers and the system of governance, bureaucracy and all that. So that is a system of executive. Then there must be a judiciary. There must be a judiciary, independent judiciary preferably. So if there is a dispute, there must be a system where the disputes can be resolved. So these are the three aspects. So that is government. That is what we call a government. So land is there, people are there, then there is a government. Now if these three things are there, then we call it a state. Then we call it a state. A constitution lays down how that state is to be managed. how that state is to be governed, what are its institutions through which laws are made, laws are executed, and if there is a controversy on the laws, it is resolved. So, that is what a constitution is about. It provides for various structures, organs of the government. The aim of our constitution makers was to prepare a constitution for all citizens. As I have rightly told you few minutes before, Indian constitution cannot be segregated, cannot be separated from our freedom struggle. From 1857 to 1947, for almost 90 years, when we were fighting for our independence, we were also thinking how, if we gain, whenever we gain independence, how we will govern ourselves. It is not that only after independence or just on the eve of independence we started discussing how it is to be governed. There are many occasions. In 1928, as you know, the Congress party drafted the first constitution of India, and it is also called the Motilal Nehru report. Simon Commission was appointed. Simon Commission also came up roughly what will be our governance system. The first round table conference, the second round table conference were held in England, and how the constitution, how the independent India, or what political changes we will bring in, that was discussed. In 1946 we discussed, and there are various points of view. But when the people of India finally, the Constituent Assembly met in 1946, and they had the mandate of drafting a constitution, they wanted a very inclusive government. How can we accommodate various viewpoints, and how can we draw the best practices from all over the world and bring it to the Indian constitution? That is what was thought of. That is very good thought from the makers of the Indian constitution. They wanted to prepare a constitution for all the people. So, that means a consensus, an agreement, a general agreement has to emerge from the constitution of India. Wanted an inclusive constitution. India is governed through a constitution. The Constitution Assembly laid down certain ideals. The preamble contains the ideals, objectives, basic principles of the constitution. I have already introduced to you, which we will discuss further in greater detail subsequently. Now, let us come to, we have come to, let me repeat the same thing in Odia. ओडिया कहू गले आम संविधान जो मूल लक्ष्य थिला से होची जे किपरि एक कल्याणकारी सरकार गठन करा जाय परिबो, किपरि एक संविधान करा जाय परिबो जहाँ लोकमानकर कल्याण करिवो, ये होची मुख्य लक्ष्य। आमे संपूर्ण भाव में पुंजीवाद विश्वास करनथुलु बा संपूर्ण भाव में समाजवाद द्वारा बा कम्युनिज्म द्वारा प्रभावित होई नथुलु। आमे समाजवाद रु साम्यवाद रु एवं पुंजीवाद रु जहाँ लोकमानक हित रे आसीबो से सबु कथा को ग्रहण करी एपरि एक संविधान करिया पे आमे चाहुतलु जहाँ कि समस्तंकर लक्ष्यर जीवनर लक्ष्य को आशा को बंचई परिबो एवं भारतवर्षर दारिद्र्य दूरीकरण हम, गरीबी दूरीकरण हम, भारतवर्ष नारी माने न्याय पाइबे, जो माने एससी एसटी कैटेगरी लोक से न्याय पाइबे, समस्तंक पाई समस्तंक हितरे एक संविधान करवा आमर लक्ष्य थिला। भारतर जो संविधान हला से संविधान 200 वर्षर स्वाधीनता संग्राम इतिहास सहित जड़ित। 1757 पलासी युद्ध है, 1757 रु 1947 पर्यंत प्राय 190 वर्ष काल भारत को से शासन कले एवं 1857 रु 1947 पर्यंत स्वाधीनता संग्राम है। यही स्वाधीनता संग्राम हवा मध्य एवं भारत को 200 वर्ष धरी शासन करथिबा अवस्था भारतीय माने संविधान किपरि हबो, एक स्वाधीन भारतर कौन स्वप्न देखिथिले, सेही स्वप्न यही सब संग्राम तारी उपरे प्रतिष्ठित होइकि भारतर संविधान तैयारी हला। तेणु एक कल्याणकारी सरकार गठन करवा एक कल्याणकारी संविधान केवल गठन करने उद्देश्य नथिला। भारत में जो से काल रे जो 33 कोटी जनता थिले सेही 33 कोटींकर जनतांकर आशा आकांक्षा को नहीं एक गणतांत्रिक सरकार किपरि गठन करवा एवं पृथ्वीर अन्य देश रे थिबा भल भल संविधान रु आमे आरोहण करवा आमे तादरु खाद्य पाइबा एवं तादरु जो गुड़े ग्रहणीय ताकू ग्रहण करी एक भल संविधान करवा आमर लक्ष्य थिला एवं समस्त संविधान करने को लक्ष्य था। तेणु भारत एक संविधान माध्यम शासित होची। तेणु आमे कहू एक सांविधानिक सरकार माध्यम शासन होची। राज्य कहले आमे लोक बुझाऊ आमे गोटे निर्दिष्ट टेरिटोरी को बुझाऊ गोटे सरकार कहले तीनटा कथा को बुझाऊ एक्जिक्यूटिव लेजिस्लेचर जुडिशियरी एक्जिक्यूटिव कहले प्रधानमंत्री इत्यादि राज्य मुख्यमंत्री इत्यादि पार्लियामेंट होची लेजिस्लेचर एवं सभा शेष रे गोटे जुडिशियरी बा विचार व्यवस्था स्वाधीन विचार व्यवस्था को बुझाऊ या नहीं आमे गोटे सरकार गठन करने को चाहिए एवं ए सरकार एक संविधान उपर पर्यवेसित हो। यही हूँ भारतीय संविधानकारी माने जिते 1946 मसीह एकाठी हेले एवं भारतीय पर संविधान प्रस्तुत करने को लगे से सब मुख्य कथा को विचार को लेकर कले। आस आम परवर्ती क्लास रे विचार करवा जे किपरि ए संविधान हैला। धन्यवाद।